Welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Well, the red flowering horse chestnut is in full bloom. The last couple of years it's really sort of come into its own. Many more blossoms than it used to have, and last year it produced the most chestnuts I've ever seen it produce. The 7 that I started from chestnuts in the house sometime in the winter, February I guess, when I planted them, are doing very well. They're sitting out back of the house now in the shade, and I've got to soon find homes for them, I guess. I think I'll take them to the community garden, or at least ask if there are people there that are interested in having one for their lawn. This is the Juliet variety of the cherry. The other 2 cherry trees have dropped most of their blossoms, but this one seems to be always a bit later blooming. And I would think it's the one that gets the most sun too, so I don't know what the excuse is. It's starting to drop its petals as well, but surely with that many blossoms I should get some cherries to try this year. If not, I think it'll become lumber when I cut it down. No, I'm just joking, but surely with that many blooms it should set some fruit, you would think. If you see lots of insects flying around, those are the miserable black flies. We're in the black fly season. I've just sprayed myself with some kind of lethal chemical, I guess, but I cannot stand them crawling on me and can't stand them biting me. This is the first earthing up, anyway, of my potatoes. I'm so pleased that they all survived the wet weather. This is just more of that organic pro-mix I'm using to earth them up a bit. I'm not going to really water it in, but I'm going to dampen it down because the stuff is so dry. At least a little bit of wind and it'll blow away, so I'm going to dampen the surface down here. Maybe get some leaves out there, I guess. Down where the potato is very wet, because 2 days ago we had a day of rain again. I guess that should do. For many years, ever since I've had the hoop hose, I mean how many years that is, I've had 200 feet of garden hose. And that 200 feet brought the hose out to the side of the hoop hose, and from there I filled watering cans and carried it all around the garden to do my watering. Well, I was at Costco the other day and I broke down and bought another 100 feet of garden hose, so now it will reach all of the gardens. I could never use a sprinkler because I never have that much water in the summertime if we get dry spell, but I like this new attachment that I bought as well. It has numerous settings, but the one that I find that I like is called the shower, and you can have it as gentle or as strong as you want it to be. So it's good for watering individual pots like this, and a lot less carrying of watering cans that are getting quite heavy. Well, I just sowed 2 flats each of rutabaga or turnip or swede, whatever you call it where you come from. Here it's called a turnip, and the variety that I'm using is called York. It supposedly is a favorite here in the Maritimes in Canada. And the beets that I'm growing are first crop. I don't think I've tried that one before, but it's supposed to be early and best for beet greens, it says, and I love the beet greens. Each one of these packs has 24 cells, and as I said, I did 2 of each, 2 of turnips and 2 of beets. I don't need all of those myself. Whatever I have left over I'll probably take up to the community garden. The turnips will be going in the area where the peas are now in July when the peas finish, and the beets will be going in the hoop house probably where the spinach, mesclun, that will probably start to deteriorate when the weather gets hotter in July. I've been enjoying the lettuce every day now. It's really nice, such a good variety. Well, I just brought my squash, various kinds of squash, various kinds of cucumbers, and various kinds of sunflowers out of the hoop house. Obviously the roosters are happy about it. And the area where they were sitting on the soil in there, I'm about to prepare it and plant, I think, maybe 4 cucumber plants. All of the varieties of cucumbers that I'm growing, the 3 different varieties, are all what they call parthenocarpic. Each blossom is female, and each blossom produces a cucumber without being pollinated. So they're excellent for use in a greenhouse. And I don't think I'll be growing them up anything, but that's a fairly large area. I can just trail the vines along in that area and hopefully get some earlier cucumbers in there. Certainly more plants here in both cucumber, squash, and sunflowers than I will be using, so the community garden will benefit from these as well. This is the area where all of those pots of seedlings just came out of. I'm going to prepare it, like I said, for 4 of my cucumber plants. It's already had a layer of the ProMix organic vegetable and herb soil, and this is 2 pails of my well composted chicken manure. And I spread that around and then take the fork and just twist the fork in it to get it incorporated into the soil. I also plan to use black plastic mulch. I can't decide if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I've used it in here before growing tomatoes and things and was very successful with it. I found a little bit that I had left over, so I'm going to put them on black plastic mulch. That should help conserve water, and also if the vines grow and produce a lot of cucumbers, they won't be laying on soil, they'll be laying on the black plastic. So I'll bring you back as soon as I get the plastic on the surface here. As usual, I'm not too sure what you can see. I've got the plastic down. There's one good thing about using it in a hoop house or a greenhouse: you don't have to worry about wind, so it doesn't have to be fastened down all that securely. And I'm going to water each of the 4 locations heavily before I do any planting. It's a lovely warm day here today, 24, 25 degrees, something like that. But in here in the hoop house, I'm sure it's at least mid-30s. I don't have a thermometer in here anymore. But I don't want to get the foliage wet, because that will burn immediately in the sun. I'm planting 2 of the quarantine. Those are the European gherkins, and 1 of Lisboa and 1 of Mini Crunch. I'm planting 2 of the quarantine because I seeded those 2 to a pot, and the ones that came up, all 2 came up, and I have a couple that nothing came up in. Maybe I missed them and didn't get seeds in them, I don't know. Anyway, I will put these in the soil here. Going with a spade. I'll come back in this evening and water them again once the sun has gone off of the hoop house here. At this point, they're very easy to separate anyway. I'll give you a look at them when I get all 4 in. Well, hopefully you can see at least some of them, but all 4 of them have been transplanted. Now the crazy man is going to get out of the hot greenhouse. Take Angel to the beach for a swim. Beautiful day. I know, I've shown it before. I can't stop looking at it. It's the best year ever for the red flowering horse chestnut. It just keeps looking better every day. It looks like I'm growing straw, doesn't it? Well, maybe I am, I guess. It's oat straw and lots of oat seeds in the stuff, so I'm sure there will be lots of oats come up in it. This is my second year of growing in beds that are covered with straw, and you just leave the straw on there. Last year's had composted quite nicely, so hopefully it's put some nutrients into the soil. And I've just planted this cage with my cucumbers. I've put planks down the center that you can't see. They've got quite a bit of straw on them, so I can walk in there to do whatever I have to do without disturbing anything. And I've planted 11 cucumbers in there. The Mini Crunch and Lisboa are on the right wall here. There's 4 plants, a couple of each, I think. And the European Gherkin is planted across the back and on the left wall. I had more of those, so that ended up being more of those in there. But they're all what they call parthenocarpic, all female blossoms. Every blossom produces a cucumber, and no need for pollination. So if they grow up the side fencing here like I'm hoping they will, this should work out quite well. I'll show you down in one of the little places now where I've transplanted one of the cucumbers. Each one is in its little area like that, and once the plant hopefully grows and starts to vine and climb, I will put more straw in around the base. And right now I'm going to plant some of my sunflowers around the exterior here, just a few of them I guess, and then I'm moving on to do the squash. Well, I guess I haven't said this is June 19th as I'm doing this transplanting. I just transplanted giant Russian and giant American sunflowers down the far side of the cage, and down this near side I put the firecracker ones. I think the firecracker sunflowers are ones that have multiple blossoms, and the giant ones usually have one huge blossom. So get them watered in and give them some slug and snail bait. I did the same, by the way, for the cucumbers. I watered them in and sprinkled some of the slug and snail bait, because that's the first thing that will happen here, is the slugs will come out to eat the new seedlings. As you can see, I have my furry helper with me. Follows me everywhere I go. I think she's bored silly. That bed behind Angel was where I grew potatoes last year under straw. The potatoes grew very well, but the moles and the voles didn't even say thank you. They just destroyed them. So I'm back to growing my potatoes in containers. I have planted 6 of the winter varieties of squash. The first 3 closest to the camera here are the baby blue Hubbard squash, and the 3 in the back are lower Salmon River squash. Should they survive and grow, these plants tend to be enormous, with runners going in all directions, and hopefully a few squash. So they've each got 1 plant down in there, watered, and some slug bait down in on them. I don't think this bed will require any more hay. I put hay over some of the beds in the hoop house last summer, and I didn't care for it. So this spring, when I was cleaning up the hoop house, I brought it all out and piled it on top of this bed. It isn't as bright and white as new hay would be, because it's been there for 5 or 6 weeks and rain and whatever, but there's a lot of hay. You dig down a long ways before you find soil to put your squash plant in, so I think that will be well mulched for the summer. Well, this is the round bed made out of that cloth material that like smart pots are made out of, or geopots. I think last year I grew brassicas in it. It was the first year that I had it last year, and this year I'm planting cocosella, which is an Italian summer squash, and I think similar to a zucchini, if not actually a zucchini, but anyway, the name is cocosella. I put 3 in there, and one thing I've noticed, digging down in to find soil to put the squash plant in, under that decomposing hay, things are really nice and warm, so that's an advantage. It is, as it's rotting down or whatever, it is heating up the soil. This is an overcast day so far. We had fog this morning. Most of the fog seems to have disappeared, but we still haven't got any sun. Forecast says we'll have sun this afternoon, but a day like this is really good for transplanting into the garden anyway. This is just a few feet away from where I planted those squash in what used to be like a perennial border with lots of shrubs and flowering things in the border, and it's been ignored for years. It's overgrown. Roses have overgrown in it, and all kinds of wild things have come up. But this Gibraltar azalea survives every year and blooms beautifully with those large orange heads of flowers, and what you see behind it again, of course, is my red flowering horse chestnut. We've got Angel photobombing here again, if you can see her. Oh, she just walked away, I guess. I don't know if you can make that out as 4 separate beds, but that's what it is. They started out as 4-foot square beds years ago when I did square-foot gardening. And I still like to have the beds that size. I can walk in around them everywhere. You can always reach in 2 feet from any side to do what you want to do. Back in the far right corner is my rhubarb that I grew from seed last year. Nowhere near as vigorous as what Kevin is growing. If you watched Kevin's video, I gave him some seed, and his monster plants compared to mine. Well, mine did try to bloom, Kevin, the same as yours did, and I cut the blossoms off. I want it to spend more time putting down roots and whatever, hopefully be stronger plants next year rather than wasting its energy in flowers and seeds. And I have 3 that are green stalked and 1 that is almost completely a red stalk, and they're all supposed to be the same variety, so there's something a bit fishy there somewhere. The other 3 beds, I have put 4 squash plants in each bed. One bed has baby blue Hubbard, one bed has lower salmon river, and one has spaghetti squash. So there are 16 plants there altogether, and I've, as you can see, have added more straw. I've also watered them and given them their slug pellets, so fingers crossed when I come out tomorrow there are still plants here. They haven't all been eaten. This is my bed of parsnips on the left and carrots on the right. Multicolored carrots, I guess. I haven't thinned the carrots at all, and I'm not so sure that I'm going to. They're not terribly thick. I have thinned the parsnips twice, and I still think they might be too thick. Well, I'll wait. Later on, if I think they're crowded out, I'll pull out more of them, but I'm pleased with that result so far anyway. And the garlic seems to be still coming along quite nicely. Very few, if any, brown tips. I guess I see 1 or 2. The hardneck hasn't yet sent up any scapes that I can see, but that usually happens here in early July. But hopefully there's something down below that matches these lovely tops. The peas are trying to straighten themselves back up. We had a heavy windstorm a few days ago, and they sort of all leaned off to the right. But they straightened up reasonably well, and they're a bush variety. They don't require support. I always try to plant them close enough together so that all their little tendrils will intermingle and they'll support each other. So far no blossoms, but I would expect that any day now. They're, well, close to full grown as far as height goes, I think. This is one of the many varieties of Veronica. Not sure which one any longer. I'm not sure which garden bed I put it in many years ago, but it is all over my property, growing in the trees, under trees, and everywhere. I just love it. It pops up and you don't have to do anything to it, and it blooms for several weeks this time of year. So the potatoes are up, so I can do the final earthing up on those. More of the organic Pro Mix for vegetables and herbs, it says on the package. They seem to be liking it so far. They're growing very well in it. I was worried there for a while with all the wet weather that they might just rot, but they came up. That's as close as I filled them to the top. I want to be able to water them if we get dry weather. And want some space that doesn't have any soil there. Well, that's encouraging. Another job done anyway. All I have to do now is keep them watered and keep my fingers crossed for some potatoes. The variety is called Superior. I don't believe I've ever grown it before. It's supposedly an early variety, but what that means here I don't know. I usually let mine grow anyway until I see the tops dying back, and then whatever's down there is down there. I dump them out. But if they should grow potatoes as large as the seed potatoes that I planted, it will be amazing. I had never encountered seed potatoes that large before. Anyway, they all came up and they're all growing, so that's a plus. Wow, it is hot in the greenhouse, hoop house. Not a great deal to show you in here, but I will take you for another little look at the lettuce and the mesclun there. On the left is a packet of free seed from the Annapolis Seed Company, which said it had up to 12 varieties of lettuce in it, and there certainly is a great variety there, and I have been really enjoying it. Now that it's getting so hot, I'm not so sure how much longer it will last. And on the right, the mesclun is again a lot of lettuce and a lot of sort of an oak leaf thing that I'm not quite sure what it is. Somebody commented that it could be rocket, so maybe I'm growing rocket. I don't think I've ever grown rocket before, but both of those patches are doing very well. And down just a little bit further, the spinach is getting sort of picked over, but it still hasn't bolted, which is amazing. In this heat, I thought it would have flowered long before this, but I'll have to get my scissors out and clip what's left and use it before that happens, I guess. And the Wenzel tomato wins the prize of being the first one to have a blossom. I was thinking it would be the Cole tomatoes, which are developed for this short climate of ours. Lots of blossom buds on them, but none of them have opened yet. Southpaw Davy is having great success with them, so I'm hoping I will too. But the Wenzel rather, is a type of brandywine, pink they call it, and it also has been selectively bred for years to grow in a short season. So at least here in the hoop house, I'm sure I will get something off of it. I've got one growing up at the community garden. Time will tell on that one, I guess. But it's a large, almost a double blossom, which those things tend to have. And I've been tweaking it back and forth. Looking forward to brandywines are usually an ugly looking thing, lumpy and growing in all directions and splitting and that sort of thing, but they are delicious. So looking forward to having this later on in the summer. Well, that will conclude the look around at my gardens. There's not much else in here, as I said, to show you. The tomatoes and peppers are just taking hold and starting to grow. You've seen one tomato seedling and one pepper seedling. You've seen them all. But to finish this off, I'm going up to the community garden this afternoon to give them my leftover squash and cucumber and sunflower plants. And I'll show you a few clips of what's happening at the gardens. Well, I just arrived at the garden. You have this nice new sign on the fence that surrounds it, but the sign that I want to show you is next to it. The garden has been entered into a contest amongst community gardens in this end of New Brunswick, I guess. There's a building supply company called Kent's Building Supplies, and that's their Facebook. It's at Kent's Building Supplies. I will put a link down below the video, at least I will try to. And the garden that gets the most votes by, I think it's mid-July, will win a $2,000 prize. These building supply stores also have a large garden center, so we can buy $2,000 worth of supplies from their garden center if we're the lucky winner. So I'd like to encourage all of my viewers to go to the website and all you have to do is like the page, and that gives us another vote. You have to, as I said, there are 11. You have to click on our community garden and then like the page, and we get another vote. But I will try to put a link down below that takes you directly to our section of the page. Just dropped off my leftover cucumbers and squash and sunflowers. Hopefully somebody will find some use for them. This is my plot. I'm pleased with it so far. My potatoes are up, and I planted them down in a trench, so I've earthed them in as much as I can, I guess. I may try to find some more soil around the edges to bring up around them as they grow. Beets probably will have to be thinned soon. I put a couple of cucumbers in. My Wenzel tomato up here is not blooming yet, but it has some blossom buds on it. Peas are doing quite well, and the lettuce and spinach, about as much as you can put in a tiny little plot like that, I guess. A lot of the plots are in use now and looking very good. I'll give you a look at a few of them. I was talking to the woman that owns this plot the other day. She tells me she has never gardened before. Well, I think she's off to a great start if she's never gardened before. I see peas and beans and onions, probably cucumbers in the far corner, and I'm not sure. Yeah, these are cucumbers here as well. I think there's two little seedlings, either cucumbers or squash, in the far corner. It is looking very good, especially for a first-time gardener. And I met the lady who's doing this garden. I think she's one of our customs officers here at the border. I think that's the right garden that I'm looking at. She seems to have brassicas growing. I don't know if they're all cauliflower. No, I think I see. Oh, okay. Brussels sprouts. And broccoli. The only two tags that I see are Brussels sprouts and broccoli, and I suspect that she's probably planted potatoes over there the way I planted mine, down in a trench, but they're not up yet. So far this plot has some good looking tomato plants, and I'm not sure if those are squash or cucumbers. Both, I guess. Some are squash, is zucchini, and the other one is cucumber, and I see a strawberry plant. This is that herb garden that I showed in the last video. It's doing very well. As far as a location for a garden on Campobello Island, this is ideal. It gets full sun the entire day, when we have a sunny day anyway. And the herbs, of course, are really enjoying that. Not sure who owns this plot. Two very nice tomato plants, peas that are looking good, lettuce that's just coming up. Yes, I see carrots that are just coming up, onions, and a patch of cucumbers. Several of the plots here, as I said before, I think are being grown by staff at the nursing home for use at the nursing home, so I'm not sure if this is one of those or not, but whoever is growing it is doing very well. Of course, I have to look at the straw bale gardens. I'm very interested in that. These pepper plants, I guess 2-3 weeks ago, the first time I looked at them, they have grown a lot. So they're enjoying growing in a straw bale anyway. Next to it looks like carrots to me, and they're coming up quite nicely. The final bale is those pear-shaped yellow tomatoes, and the plants are looking very robust. I'm talking to the owner of this one day, and we can't decide if there's too many in there or not, but I think I would just let them keep growing. He's got some good stakes there to fasten them to when they get taller, and they certainly look very healthy and robust at this point anyway. Well, that will conclude this video. I'll get it uploaded. Thank you very much for watching.